Questions pop up lately about home inspections. So today I'm going to tell you your rights as a buyer and as a seller during the inspection period. Stay tuned.
You better get fired up.
Guys, good to see you. Happy Monday. We're here every single Monday with What's Hot, where we talk about the hottest things in the real estate market. Today we're going to talk about inspections. I'm seeing a lot of different questions arise from inspections. A lot of people not fully understanding what their rights are and are not. And so I thought I'd just go over that today, right? So traditionally in a typical contract in Florida, you're going to see line 261 in that contract asks you how many days you want as a buyer to conduct a home inspection. Now, it's rare, but I've seen it. You don't see a lot of it anymore. But back in like 2020, 2021, you would see a 0 in there, right? Meaning we're going to forego inspection. Okay, sounds good. Whatever you want to do. And you certainly have the right to do that. Why would you want to do that? This is not a pitch for that, but the reason you would want to do that is you want your offer to stand out, right? There's something about your offer that you think may not be appealing to the seller, whether it's a low price, maybe it's contingent on the sale of your home, maybe the terms aren't the greatest, maybe there's multiple offers and you don't know if you're the best offer or not. So to get ahead, you will say, hey, I won't do an inspection. So it's not one thing you got to worry about with me. Now, why would a seller care about that? Because if I have 10 deals fall apart, probably 7 or 8 of them, maybe even 9 of them fell apart due to inspection. That's the number one reason by far that deals fall apart. And I don't even know what number 2 would be, probably financing, but that's much rarer. The typical reason a deal falls apart is inspection. So during inspection, as a seller, what are your rights? You don't really have a whole lot. You do have the right to not have an inspector come in and do intrusive testing unless you've agreed to it in writing. But that's really about it. You're on pins and needles. Well, okay, that's not true. Let's go a little bit deeper with this. You do have the right to continue to show your property. You do have the right to accept backup offers, okay? So if deal number 1 falls apart, you've got deal number 2 lined up. That said, you're also responsible on the MLS for marking that listing as under contract within, I believe it's 48 hours of going under contract. So once agents see and buyers see that that property is listed active under contract or pending, the odds of you getting more showings goes down dramatically. Like I would say, and this is a guess, you're going to lose 95% of your showings. That said, the showings you are going to get are very interested. They're begging to get in there. They're begging to be a backup offer. And that usually means you're going to get a pretty solid offer because that person loves the home. But those are your rights as a seller. Until that deadline has gone by, you really don't have a lot of leverage. You can't back out of the deal. You can't push them to do certain things on the inspection. It is what it is. As a buyer, you've got the amount of days listed on line 261. Now, boilerplate, if you leave it open, is 15 days, which I think is crazy. I think it's crazy for everybody. As a buyer and a buyer's agent, it makes your offer look weaker. It's a huge red flag to a listing agent to say, you want me to pull this sucker off the market, not just for 2 weeks, but longer than 2 weeks. And for what reason, right? You can get an inspector in there 1, 2, 3 days. Why do you need 15? Huge red flag. It makes every other thing about your offer look a little bit worse, and it's tougher to get it accepted, right? As a listing agent, I just think, well, the odds of this deal falling apart are greater as the amount of days you've got to change your mind and get an inspection are greater. Why would I want that? And the seller's thinking the same thing. So it really helps nobody. The only person I would argue it helps is somebody who maybe lives out of state or out of area and wants to physically be there. Although I would argue you don't need to be at an inspection. You're going to get the report. You can have a conversation with the inspector over the phone. You can do a FaceTime with your agent. I mean, there's all kinds of answers to that these days. Or a more common issue is you just can't get an inspector. So maybe you've got a 5-day inspection contingency period, but you can't get an inspector in there until day 6. Okay, so for that reason, maybe you want 7, 8, 9 days. I completely understand that, but that's rare. You can usually get an inspector in within 1 to 3 days in most situations. So I typically recommend to my buyers, let's do 5 days. Again, if I can't get an inspector in until day 5, that's a little tight. Let's move it out to 6 or 7 days. But otherwise, I want it tight because I want my buyer to look prepared, ready, decisive, right? 15 days tells me, are you decisive? I don't know if I trust that. I'm not overly excited about that. I'll tell you too, if I were to go back and look at all the offers I ever had where the inspection contingency period was 5 days or 15 plus days, I would bet my mother, I bet she's listening to this, that those with 5 days close at a much higher rate than those with 15 plus days, because it's correlational to other issues I would assume we're going to have, right? So as a buyer, what are your rights once you get that inspection report back? Well, number one, you're not even forced to have an inspection. That's just literally free time, right? You don't have to have an inspection. Your inspection could be you. It could be your dad. It could be your neighbor. It could be your buddy. It could be anything you want it to be. So you're not forced to go out and get an inspection. You also have the entire time to make up your mind as to what you want to do, right? But you do need a decision made by the end of that day. Let's say it's 5 days. You need a decision made by that day, or one party's out of contract. We'll go through that in a little bit, right? Or you need an extension. So that's one challenge with getting your inspection done on day 5 when you have a 5-day window is, okay, we get the inspection done. We get the report at 4 o'clock. You write an addendum up saying you want ABC fixed or a credit or whatever it is you want, and we send it off by 6:30 p.m. And now the seller doesn't have enough time to look into how much it's going to cost. I can't get any quotes. It's hard to make up your mind. So you're probably going to need an extension. In that case, I'd probably do a 7-day instead of a 5-day inspection, right? So when you get that inspection report, you can look at it. And I always tell people, depending upon the house, you're going to have 20, 30, 40 issues pop up. We're really looking at the difference between safety issues and really expensive issues versus what I call Home Depot issues. I can't even say it right. Home Depot issues. Okay. So Home Depot issues are like, if you've got a hairline crack in a tile and it's evident, everybody can see it. It's not being hidden from you. That's a Home Depot thing. And it should be priced accordingly, right? If you see weather stripping is maybe pulling away, or there's a little gap between the door and the edge of the door, the frame of the door, that's going to show up. Is that a reason to back out of a home? Does that have to be fixed? No, that's something you can fix at Home Depot. This seller, I have that issue on my front door. I love my house, but honestly, I don't know if I'd say I'm too lazy. I just don't know how to do it. I need to watch a YouTube video. So all of that with that for years, a new buyer might have an issue with it. But again, that's typically a Home Depot issue. Does that mean you can't ask for those things? No, you can. But as a realtor, I'm going to coach you on the things that you can typically ask for that are acceptable and those that are going to be a little bit more challenging and you risk losing the house and why, right? But you can ask for anything. It's typically going to be repairs and replacements or a credit. And you don't risk anything. The seller could say no, and you don't risk losing the home. You could move forward, and even though you didn't get what you want, you could still move forward. Now, the seller risks if they say no to you. You could say, okay, fine, and send a cancellation. And once that cancellation is sent, the deal's over. Now you can argue about where the money's going to go and everything else, like the escrow deposit, but the deal's over. And as a buyer, as long as you're within that inspection contingency period, unless it says in the offer, like you wrote in that this money is guaranteed, there are no refunds no matter what, which I've seen. Again, why would you do that? To improve your offer. You're competing with other offers. Unless you've got that verbiage in there, you get your escrow deposit back and you can back out. Now, if you ever make your escrow deposit hard, which means it's not refundable before you do the inspection, and you find something in that inspection that you don't like and the seller will not negotiate it, yes, the seller may lose the deal because you back out, but you are going to lose your deposit. So make sure, I've seen people say, let's make it hard because I want to make sure that they take our offer. But then when they actually get into a bind, they say, oh, I want my money back. Well, we explained this to you, right? The pro was the odds of you getting your offer accepted go up, but the con was you might lose your money and you don't know what's on the inspection. So you've got to fully be educated on this. But as a buyer, you can ask for a credit, you can ask for a repair or replacement. The seller can say yes or no, or they can negotiate with you. But if you two come to an agreement, whatever it is, maybe they do nothing, maybe they do everything or something in between, then you sign an addendum explaining exactly what needs to happen and when it needs to be done, and then you drive on. That contingency period is now over, right? If you can't make the agreement in time and you don't send a cancellation, then you're still bound as a buyer to move forward. And if you don't have any other contingencies to protect you and you do want to back out, you almost assuredly are going to lose your escrow deposit. So you want to send a cancellation if you don't have enough time to make a decision, if you don't want to risk your escrow deposit, right? So there's a lot of different situations that go on, but basically look at it like this. As long as you're within your window, 5, 7, 10, 15 days, whatever it is you wrote on line 261, you're going to be protected 99% of the time, unless you wrote something in saying your money is guaranteed for any reason. You don't like the color of the light bulbs, or you know what? I thought this grout was a light white, but I see it's a cream. And those two things are different to me. So I want to back out. You can. But once you're through that phase, that period, that inspection period, you're done. You're moving on. And if you don't send a cancellation and you don't come to an agreement and an addendum, you're still bound. So remember, sometimes it hurts because you don't want to lose the deal, but you can't get communication from the list side. They're ghosting you. Your only option, if you want to protect yourself, is to send a cancellation. And I know that's tough, but that's your option, right? Guys, hopefully that helps. If you've got any questions, or if there's anything maybe I wasn't that clear on, feel free to put it in the comments or send me a message on Facebook, and I'm happy to answer it. Also, if there are hot things in the market that you want me to talk about next Monday at 11 o'clock, feel free again to send me a DM or put it in the comments, and I'm happy to do so. Guys, have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you for joining me.